Hi BioHonors kids, this is Mr. Wolf, and today what I want to talk to you about is food dyes. So what have you really recently eaten? Did you eat any cheddar cheese today? Was it orange? Well, where does cheese come from? It comes from milk, right? Is milk orange? So why is cheddar cheese orange? Well, milk contains beta-carotene, the same natural pigment found in carrots that give carrots their orange color. When you pasture feed a cow and the cow is feeding on mostly grass, they have higher levels of beta-carotene in the spring because they're eating the fresh grass. As a result, the milk they produce has a deeper yellow color to it. Now in the winter, farmers are forced to feed their cows hay, and hay has a much lower level of beta-carotene, making the cheese from those cows less yellow and more of a white appearance. Well, in the early days of cheddar cheese lovers couldn't get enough of cheddar. Even today, almost 90% of all cheese is sold as cheddar cheese. Although they may not have understood the science back then, but people knew that yellow cheese had a better flavor than the white cheese, which meant the cheddar that came from the cows that were pasture-fed could be sold at a higher price than the cows that were hay-fed. So the cheesemakers caught on to this and realized that they could make their cheese more yellow, even if it was white, hay-fed cheese. They could trick people into thinking it was the authentic yellow cheddar. The more the yellow, the higher the prices they could charge for their cheddar cheese. In a few minutes, we're going to teach all your Starbucks fans what's really in your strawberry frappuccino, but more on that later. Let's first talk about color. Now, color tells our brains a lot about food. For example, what flavor is this Skittle? If you've ever had a Skittle before, you'll probably think that this Skittle is probably lemon. But what if it's a tropical Skittle? Could it be banana? Could it be mango? Could it be passion fruit? Color tells us a lot about what we eat, and so food companies have figured out that adding colored dyes to their food makes it more appealing to their customers. But food dyes wasn't always regulated. In the early 1800s, some cheeses and cayenne pepper was actually colored with lead trioxide. Lead trioxide is a pigment found in paint. Pickles were colored with copper sulfate. Copper sulfate is a very good fungicide. And green tea, that herbal green tea you might have been drinking back in the 1800s, was colored with copper carbonate. Copper carbonate is great at killing algae in ponds. So what do all these have in common? They're kind of poisonous to humans. Yet, they weren't regulated, and so food companies were just in for making money. It actually wasn't until the 1900s, the early 1900s, that there was actually any control put on what was being made in our foods. The Food and Drug Administration, which was founded in 1906, came to a lot of public outcry over the types of foods that were being processed. Maybe you've heard of Upton Sinclair's The Jungle, talking about the Chicago meat industry. A lesser-known story comes from the elixir sulfamide poisoning that occurred in 1937 that killed over 100 people. Sulfamide is a drug used to treat streptococcal infections. Streptococcal is a type of bacteria. It's very effective in both tablet and powder form, and safe. But in 1937, a salesman noticed the need for a liquid form of the drug. So he contacted the chief chemist and pharmacist of his company, Harold Watkins, and he began to experiment and found that this chemical, this sulfamide, was easily dissolved in diethyl glycol. The company tested it for both fragrance, appearance, and taste and found it satisfactory. And so they made a bunch of it and sold it. However, they did not test it for toxicity because it wasn't required. After all, testing a drug for toxicity and finding that a drug is toxic is bad for business, so why do it if it's not illegal? So because no pharmacological studies were done on this chemical, the new sulfamide was sent out and sold. But what Watkins failed to note was the chemical, diethyl glycol, was a chemical found normally in antifreeze, which is poisonous to humans, which is why 100 people died. From that incident, in 1938, the U.S. adopted the Food and Drug Cosmetic Act, which listed 7 approved synthetic dyes and approved natural dyes that are derived from plants and animals. Basically, the Food and Drug Cosmetic Act gave the FDA the ability to control what kind of dyes were being put in our food. Which brings us back to Starbucks. Or should I say, star bugs? Watch this video.
Hey Lee, you know that statistic that says you eat like 7 spiders a year or something crazy like that?
Gross, Joe.
Well, turns out you probably eat more insect delicacies than you ever thought possible.
Joe, don't do this to me, okay? I like food. I need food. Do not ruin food for me.
Okay, I bet you like Starbucks though, don't you, Lee?
I love Starbucks. Don't ruin coffee for me, Joe, okay? I need my coffee, just so people won't turn into stone when they look at me in the morning.
Okay, don't worry, your coffee is safe.
Oh, thank you, sweet coffee Jesus.
But I bet you love your strawberries.
And cream frappuccino. Yes, I love them. They're a staple. Whoa. Wait a minute. What's in my strawberry and cream frappuccino?
Don't worry, Lee, it's not a big deal. I mean, with every serving, you're still gonna get your massive amounts of sugar and dreams and stuff. But what you didn't know is that you also get 2 to 3 teaspoons of these guys.
Joe!
These little dudes are called cochineals. They got these oval-shaped soft bodies and they're native to Central and South America. They tend to cluster on cacti and bore into the plants with their tiny little beak-like mouths so they can suck on the cactus juice.
So you're telling me they put 3 teaspoons of these bugs every time I get a strawberry frap?
Don't be ridiculous, Lee. That'd be disgusting. What people do is that they gather a bunch of these bugs and then they crush them and then they harvest their juices and then they put their juices in your frappuccino. It's really quite interesting. The juice is actually carminic acid, which in nature is used to deter predators, but in the food industry, it's used to make a vibrant red food dye. It's said that it takes up to 70,000 of the bugs to make 1 pound of dye, and what they do, essentially, is they take all the females of the species and then they dry them out, crush them, and then they strain them. You don't want little cochineal lady legs all up in your frappuccino. Now, in the case of Starbucks, the extract is inside the strawberry puree, and it creates that signature bright pink hue. And to top it off, Starbucks, like other companies that are trying to get rid of artificial ingredients and such, like to use it because it's considered all natural.
Well, we've had some great times, strawberry frappuccino, but I'm over it. Okay, it's time to focus on the story. Starbucks spokesperson said about the creepy ingredient, "We have the goal to minimize artificial ingredients in our products. While the strawberry base isn't a vegan product, it helps us move away from artificial dyes."
Ignorance is bliss, Lee.
It sure is.
But I'm about to bring you even deeper into the painful world of knowledge and information. Carmine, or carminic acid, is also known as natural red 4 or E120, and it's used in all sorts of stuff. It's just people like you and me, we were blind to it.
No.
Oh,
no.
Yeah, it's in so much stuff. Pretty much anything that has a strawberry flavor. It's in yogurts, juices, sausages.
What? Sausages? Is nothing sacred?
Nope, it's also in lipstick and blush.
Bugs are on my face? You're ruining my life! At least I have my ceremonial Aztec blanket that's been passed down from generations that I can snuggle with. Joe?
I'm so sorry, Lee.
No!
So what about you guys? Now that you have all this information in your heads, is it going to change what you eat, or are you still going to order that strawberry frap? Let us know in the comments down below.
Don't forget to click the like and subscribe button, click the annotation down below, go to sourcefed.com for our 5 daily stories and everything else we've ever done. I'm Lee Newton.
I'm Joe Beretta.
Guys, what are you talking about?
Pretty gross, huh? So how can we tell what kind of food dyes are being put into our foods? Well, food dyes, after all, are just molecules, and molecules can be separated. For example, electricity can be used to separate molecules based on charge. For example, we could take acetate ions, which have a negative charge, and these tris ions, which have a positive charge, and we can separate them by putting an electric field across this little tube, and the negative charge will be attracted to the positive end, and then positive will be attracted to the negative end. Real simple. We could also separate materials by using sieves based on their size. You know, bigger molecules can't fit through small spaces in these sieves and so forth. So there are lots of ways we can separate different things from other materials. For example, you've probably done iron filings from other metals using magnetism, or salt from sand by dissolving the salt and then evaporating the water out and so forth. In fact, decaffeinated coffee beans is done by solubility. A chemical is used to dissolve the caffeine in the coffee beans, and the caffeine just kind of drips away. So how can we look at food dyes? Well, we're going to use a technique in biology called gel electrophoresis, which separates molecules by both charge and size. And this is done by simply placing an electric field across a gel and allowing the molecules to move across. So in this lab that we're going to be doing, you're actually going to make your own gel electrophoresis chamber by using some very simple parts, and we'll be separating some dyes in the classroom. Food makers have dyes that have intrinsic size and charge, and thus can be separated by using gel electrophoresis. Listed on this slide are some of the food dyes we'll be testing in the lab tomorrow. See you then.